Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, John Miller.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 2016 PDS Technology Conference. It's a pleasure to be back as your host. I gotta say, all the years I've been doing this, I never imagined walking on stage to Lionel Richie singing Dancing on the Ceiling. That's an all-time first, for sure. But I want to start today by saying thank you. Obviously, thank you for being here today, but most importantly, thank you for the partnerships that we've had with you over a number of years. Hopefully you see today as another reason why you choose to work with PDS. It was kind of a fun video, wasn't it? Really cool. You're seeing a little theme going on here, right? With the 1980s, the video. Who was at the reception last night? You were all a lot rowdier last night. Yeah, that's the most neon I've seen in years. But there's a reason why we're turning the clock back a little bit here. 30 years ago, October 19th, 1986, PDS opened its doors for business. In fact, we have our founder with us here today, and Craig Schefflein. Craig, why don't you stand up? Thank you, Craig. Thank you so much for your great vision and the journey that you started 30 years ago, and thanks for being still a part of the family. Love you, man. So there's great reason to celebrate this, but we don't call this a birthday because that would mean it's about us. We call it an anniversary because truly it's about all of us. 30 years of partnerships, 30 years of doing great things together. We're so grateful for that, but we're also very enthusiastic about our future. So while it's one milestone in that we celebrate our 30-year anniversary, it's another in that this is our 20th annual technology conference. We always use this as an opportunity to get together, to learn together, be inspired together, and grow together. And the collective outcome of that is we're in a better position to reach new heights. So, I want to share a little story with you here this morning. Shocker, right? So, every year I get to spend a little bit of time in fabulous Las Vegas. I go to multiple conferences every year, and there's always at least one of those that's in Vegas. And anytime I go, I try to take in one of the Cirque du Soleils like I did this past year. I'm just always blown away by what these people do. These body contortionists, these acrobats, these incredible athletes of the circus arts. But the one that really caught my attention this last year was this gentleman who was walking the tightrope. Now, there's a reason why he caught my attention. I'm always amazed by what they do. But this particular person was about 20, 25 feet in the air, but he was directly over my head. And there was nothing in between me and that tightrope. So I'm sitting there thinking, God, tell me this isn't the first time that he's tried this. Have a little minor freak out there. But then I was just blown away when I watched the ease by which this person was walking. And I couldn't help but think, how do you get to that point? To first have the courage to do that, but second then to have the confidence to walk with that gracefulness. Well, sure enough, I get back from this trip a few days later, and I'm flipping through the channels at home, and I happen to run into the movie called The Walk. Great movie, right? This followed the true story of Frenchman Philippe Petit as he walked between the Twin Towers back in 1976. My gosh, look at that. And when you see something so visually stunning like that, you're left with those same questions again. How? How do you have the courage to do that? How do you have the confidence to be able to take that on? Now, I don't know if you're like me, but when I get kind of caught up in something like this, I have a tendency to start role-playing my way into that scenario. I start asking myself, what would it be like if I had to go and walk that tightrope right now? And I guess some of you think along those lines as well. So how do you think that would go? Well, let's play through that scenario a little bit. Let's just imagine right up on stage here, we had a tightrope set up. I had a ladder going up right here to a base and a line running 20 feet this direction to another base and a ladder coming down. And I'd ask each one of you to come up right now and walk that tightrope. Well, there's a series of things that would happen from that point, all of which would involve some cussing directed at me, right? Be walking up on stage, you're going, why the hell did I come to this PDS technology conference? Never coming to one of these again, Miller. Yeah, I'd be getting all those evil looks like that, and rightfully so. But then eventually, you'd actually start making your way up the climb there, okay? And the interesting thing what happened here is you'd probably start checking out that equipment a little bit, shaking the ladder, testing the line a little bit, and thinking, is this grade A equipment, or is this half-grade equipment? Then you probably start thinking, too, who set this up? Are these professional stagehands? Or are these some carny folk on hiatus from the summer? These are some of the questions that you start asking yourself. But then ultimately you get up on top, and then you have to drum up the courage to be able to take that step, right? And it might take a little bit. But then when you go to take that step, it probably feels something like this. You're probably going, how do I place my foot? Do I go vertical with a line, horizontal with a line? Do I wear shoes, not wear shoes? If I wear shoes, what kind of shoes? All these questions would come into play because you've never done this before. But that first step, well, that's the easy one, right? Dipping one's toes in the water does not equate to swimming. All the same, putting one foot on that line, that's not walking a tightrope. You got to get all your body, all your weight up there. Getting this foot up there is the biggest thing. And when you go to do that, it looks something like this. You would fall. Unquestionably, you'd fall. You'd never be able to get 2 feet down on that. But the good thing is, here at PDS, we're all about second chances. So I'm going to get you back up on that line. Let's just say that you were able to take a few steps, right? You take those first 2 steps of courage, and then you're even able to take a few more steps after that. And by the way, I hope none of you had to do this last night for the Milwaukee Police Department. I can just imagine that conversation. Officer, you don't understand. We were at a 1986 party. It was epic. They had Schlitz on tap. It's not my fault. I know you're all more responsible than that. So what do you think happens next when you're at this point, when you're out there on the line like that? You become very aware of your situation and all the vulnerabilities that you have in your body, right? You'd start feeling all those imbalances, and you'd fall. But let's just say you didn't fall. If you didn't fall there, what would happen next is this. Your eyes, they'd go directly on your feet, right? Because it's the one thing that's holding you onto that line still. So your eyes are going to want to check that out. And what your eyes would see is all that movement on the line, and I promise you, you would fall again. And if you didn't fall looking at your feet, what do you think you might notice next? The ground, right? Just how high you are. This is what scientists refer to as an oh shit moment, right? And again, I can promise you, you would fall. So I can say this with a level of confidence about what you'd experience if you walked a tightrope, because I now have experience in walking a tightrope. You see, I have a very curious mind. When there's something that intrigues me or even scares me a little bit, I like to be able to attack it head on. So case in point, growing up as a child, I always had a fear of extreme heights. Not being on a roof or a ladder, but overlooking a cliff, that always gave me the eegie-weebies. At the same time, I never flew in an airplane anywhere as a child. So naturally, when I got out of college and got my first job and a little cash in my pocket, I got some friends together and went skydiving. So yes, my first time in an airplane, I jumped out of it. That's not something that a sane person does. Solo jump from 4,000 feet. Folks, if you ever wondered what the look of fear is, please look at the screen right now. And while I know there's no audio on this, if you look really, really close at it, you can almost hear what sounds like an 8-year-old girl screaming at the top of her lungs. Yeah. But this gets you inside my head a little bit and how I think. So naturally, when my mind became captivated by these tightrope artists earlier this year, I made a commitment this summer that I was going to learn how to walk a tightrope. So getting started on this, I did a lot of personal research. You may not know this about me, but I'm a YouTube mechanic at home. I'm also a YouTube fix-it guy. It's one of my go-to places for learning, right? So naturally, I went there, did a lot of reading, a lot of personal research on this, but I quickly realized if I wanted to be successful in this and accelerate my journey to this and not break too many bones or kill myself along the way, I really needed to be able to have a guide in this journey. So this is where I met a man by the name of Rob Somervell. Very gifted, talented man in the circus arts. He's most famously known for his work with the German wheel. He does that all over the country. But most importantly, he's a great teacher. And when I shared with him what my goals were for this, he got enthusiastic about it and wanted to be a part of that goal with me and help me in this journey. And with that, I then got introduced to the Madison Circus Space. This is a great group of people, talented people who are all committed to the circus arts. And from here, my training began. Now, by the way, if you're sitting next to somebody from PDS and they're going, what in the world is he talking about? I didn't tell anybody about this. So they're all hearing it for the first time here today, too. Spoiler alert, everything's going to turn out okay here, all right? I'm alive, so. Part of why everything turned out okay is I didn't just strap a line 20 feet in the air and say, hey, let's see what happens. Instead, I actually practiced on something that looks exactly like this. So this is about 3 feet tall, and the line runs about 10 feet. And what a tightrope actually is it's twisted wires, and it's about the diameter of my pinky, so it's very, very thin. Now, I'll tell you, doing this, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And if you don't believe me, we actually are going to have this set up in our exhibit hall today. So, yeah, go try that out. It's really good with dress shoes on too, yeah, or heels for that matter. We'll have some spotters there if you want to try that out today, though. You can have a little fun with that. While learning it was not easy, it was highly rewarding. And I thought what I'd do is share with you today some of the steps that we took in learning to walk a tightrope. So the first thing is, you have to ask yourself what you want to do and why you want to do it. So in using that earlier example today of me asking you to come on stage and walk the tightrope, one of the reasons why that doesn't work, that's not your goal. That was my goal. That wasn't your goal. And like anything in life, the chances of success you have go up when you're working to accomplish your own goals versus somebody else's. So for me, I had to ask myself, what was my goal in this? Now, my goal was pretty modest. I just wanted to see what it would take to learn how to walk a tightrope. It kind of blows my mind that you can walk on something the size of my pinky. It doesn't register with me. So I wanted to see what it would take to actually learn that, and then maybe over time, get up in the air a little bit. Not into risking my life territory, but broken bone territory, that kind of sounds like fun. So those were the modest goals that I had with this. But it became very clear for me, as I said earlier, very early on, that I needed to have a guide for this journey. And honestly, I can't imagine having done this without Rob. He helped me build a plan to succeed. He helped even raise the bar of what I could do in this journey and challenged me to go even higher than what I was originally thinking. Now, Rob also helped me assess my strengths and my weaknesses. Now, there's 3 things you have to evaluate about yourself if you want to walk a tightrope, okay? Posture, placement, and low center of gravity. And I had issues in all 3, right? So from a posture standpoint, when I'm naturally standing, I have a tendency to lean forward and lean to the right a little bit. I attribute this to 20 years sitting behind a computer holding my mouse, right? It's my IT pose. But that's become my posture, so that's one of the things that I had to be able to work on correcting, okay? Now, from a placement standpoint, one of the strengths I have actually is my feet. I have size 12 feet. So the idea here is if you do a vertical placement of your foot onto that line, you're occupying a good chunk of real estate. The more real estate you occupy, the better chance you have for stability on the line. Now, staying with my feet for a moment, I also have a weakness there. This might surprise you, but I don't own ballerina slippers. That's actually the preferred footwear for tightrope artists because it gives you a little bit of support, but you don't completely sacrifice the feel that you like to have on the line. And then there's this whole low center of gravity challenge. So given the fact that I measure in at 5 foot 14 inches, my height is actually a little bit of a challenge. So you have to learn over time to be able to walk in a way where you lower your body and get more of your weight closer to that line, okay? Now, if you ever watched the movie The Walk, you may recall the key lesson highlighted by Philip Petty that he received from his mentor was this: always make sure you understand your equipment. Always make sure you understand how it was set up. Because if you're putting yourself at risk, if you're trying to accomplish something that's so big, why would you settle for anything less than the best? So you really learn quickly that you have to have the right equipment installed the right way, and also that ability to tune it to your own personal preferences. So surprisingly, Rob also introduced me to some new equipment that I wasn't even thinking about. This is called a slack line. So Rob knew that part of my goal was to just walk a tightrope, but over time, get a little higher in the air. So a slack line was some equipment that would allow me to be able to do that. So what a slack line is it's like a boat strap. So it's very, very thin, and it's about 1 inch thick compared to the pinky thickness of a tightrope. But there's all kinds of movement in this line because it's really just a strap. But the nice thing is it's portable. So all you need is 2 big trees, and you can go as high as you want. Now, walking these things are very, very different, but the lessons you take to learn how to walk them are very much the same. So I actually chose to work on both of these pieces of equipment. So once you get started, you fall a lot. There's just no way around it. It's just the reality of the situation. You just got to pick yourself up, dust yourself up, and get back up on that line. Now, I'll tell you, for me, the biggest lesson by far was this: look at where you're going, not at where you are. Because the reality is, when you're on that line, there's chaos going on down there. You know why? That line, it's always moving. When it's a wire, it's actually turning on you. When it's a slack line, it's moving every which direction. So you have to know that going in. You have to know and accept there's going to be a little chaos going on down there, but you have to avoid looking down. You know why? Because your eyes, they're directly connected to your brain, and they never lie to your brain. So when your eyes actually see all that chaos, they say, oh shit, and bad things happen from there. It's like no recovery. The moment your eyes see that line moving, you fall just like that. So you have to trust that all the preparation you put into this allows you to just accept and manage that chaos. But you can't keep your eyes there. You keep your eyes on where you're going, and therefore every step you make is progress in the right direction. Now, the challenge is, you know it's going to get a little bit tougher, okay? The closer you move to the center point, the harder it gets, because the highest points of tension are on each anchor, right? So the further you move away from that, which happens to then be the center point, that's where there's the most variance in the line. And God forbid you're outside and there's weather, wind, or other elements in play. So you can work to struggle through that, but why struggle if you don't have to? This is why if you watch a professional tightrope artist, you'll realize they use these large balance pulls, right? They actually strap them on top of their body, and these poles are about 20 feet long with most of the weight distributed at the end. And as they're having some natural imbalances, what they're doing is they're actually turning that pole a little bit to distribute weight a little bit differently, okay? Now, I can't speak to exactly when this happens, but it's a beautiful thing when it finally does. At some point in this journey, there's a moment of clarity, a moment of calmness, where you're no longer thinking, you're just walking. Where all of a sudden those first courage steps are no longer steps of courage, they're just your first steps. And as you continue walking, you're not even worried about the chaos that's going on down there because you've worked on your posture, your placement, your low center of gravity. You know that times are going to get tougher ahead, but you know you have that support to be able to weather that storm and get through that. And as you get through that, you start realizing every step's getting a little bit easier. It's getting a little bit easier. And because your eyes have never left that point where you're going, you realize just how close it is. And a funny thing happens right at that point. You just sprint to the end. That last leg of the journey, it goes by in a millisecond because once it's within reach, you just go get it. And damn, that is an awesome, awesome feeling to have. It's one of those yes moments that you get, that first time you're able to accomplish that. And I still recall this, and at that time, Rob and I didn't even know each other that well, but we're hugging, we're high-fiving. I'm not even sure which one of us was more excited in this. But I share this story with you today for a reason. It's not to say, hey, look at what I did. Any one of us can do this. There's no major accomplishment there. It was important to me, but any one of us could do that. But the unexpected benefit and value I got out of this is this. All those lessons that I used to learn how to walk a tightrope, I believe those are all transferable to all of us, all of you as technology leaders. Let me briefly just revisit those, but let's do so under the context of how it applies to you as a technology leader. First thing we talked about before, establish your goal. You all have been anointed a leader in your area, okay? You're all a leader in your organization. At the same time, you all have a boss. It's a team lead, manager, director, VP, CIO, CEO, or board of directors. You all report to somebody. And I can tell you this, their expectation of you is not to tell you how to do your job. No. They want to share with you a vision, but for you to come back and say, hey, here's what's possible. Here's how high we can go. And therefore, here's what our goals should be. That's an empowering position to be able to be in. Because ultimately, when you're working to establish and accomplish your own goals versus somebody else's, your subscription goes up and your success rate goes up as well. So seize that opportunity you have in establishing your IT, your business goal. Enroll an advisor. If you deem this goal to be so worthy of you and your organization's time, energy, and expense, it probably makes sense to get some outside perspective to be able to assist. Like walking a tightrope, the likelihood I had for success in that went through the roof once I got Rob involved with this. He helped me outline my journey. He helped me think differently about what was possible. And as a result, I even raised my goals up a little bit. You should all think of your partner community very much the same way. Share with them your goals, solicit their feedback, and allow them to play a role with you through your entire journey. It's all about helping ensure success for you. And as you get started, always make sure you're taking the time to assess your strengths and your weaknesses. From an IT standpoint, anytime you're taking on a new initiative, it has to be something that leverages your strengths, but also addresses your weaknesses. It's why it's prudent to do things like risk assessments. It's prudent to do things like readiness workshops. It's all about making sure these aren't future roadblocks for you in your journey. Choose and set up the right equipment. Now, I'll tell you, when you start putting your body in the air, no way in heck you're going to do that on any cheap equipment. Who would do that? All the same, if this thing you're attacking, this goal that you have is so important to you and your organization, You wouldn't want to do that on the cheapest equipment either, right? You always want to make sure you're getting the right technology designed and installed the right way. Again, it's about ensuring success and not creating more turbulence down the road. Look at where you're going, not at where you are. This sounds so simple, but let's think about our current jobs. It's so easy to get consumed by the whirlwind of today. There's always issues going on. Something's down, something's not working, somebody needs something. That list is endless. But if you're so fixated on managing what is today, you forego the opportunity to seize the promise of tomorrow. Let me just give you one other illustration of this. What if I said right now I'm going to give away $1 million? I got your attention, don't I? What if I said I'm going to give away $1 million to the first person who can run through that door right there? Your necks would snap, they turn so fast, your eyes would get so big, and you dash like hell to get through that door, right? But what if I altered that challenge a little bit and said this? What if I said I'm going to give away $1 million to the first person who can run through that door, but you can't look at that door, you can only look at your feet. It'd be like watching the March of the Penguins here, watching all of you try to get out that door right there. And it's another way I can try to visually illustrate what I believe to be the most important lesson in walking a tightrope. But I also believe this to be one of the most important lessons in leadership. You can't get caught looking down. You can't get caught looking at your feet. You can't get consumed by today. You have to build a team structure and system underneath you and trust operational excellence is happening. You have to trust your feet. Know there's going to be issues, but your eyes, you get what you look at. And I promise you this, if you're looking right there, that's exactly where you're going to stay. If you want to go there, put your eyes there, and then every action you take as a leader is progress in that direction. And inevitably, as you make progress, you know you're going to face some turbulence down the road. You have to prepare for the unexpected, which is like the ultimate oxymoron, right? But the reality is, anytime you do an initiative, there's always something that comes up that you can't quite predict. So how do you prepare for that? Well, going back to those things that we just talked about, have you assessed your strengths and your weaknesses? Have you determined how you're going to leverage those strengths, but also address those weaknesses? Have you put in place the right technology the right way? Have you surrounded yourself with the right people, process, and technology to manage what is today? And then you're in a position to leverage your guide to help you with the unknown. I want you to think for a second. If I said, think about your current IT partners, the people that you work with, and I'm sure a couple of names come into mind. But now let me ask you this when you think about them. Are they there for you for the entire journey? Or are they there for you for a point in that journey? My guess is you're going to identify some that are there just for a point, right? Maybe to give you a quote on something and ship you something and give you always on-time invoicing, right? That's not a partner. That's a vendor. A partner is there with you for the entire journey. The entire journey. So our criteria you look at has to be different when you select who you actually choose to work with. Will they be there for you for the entire journey? Will they be there for you when you go live? Will they be there for you when you need temporary help? Will they be there for you post-implementation when you need to have some ongoing support? Will they be there for you for the things you can't quite predict, but you know at some point in this journey you're going to need some help? Do they have that flexible staffing resources to be able to respond to that? A good partner can say yes to that, but most importantly, a good partner will be there for you for that entire journey. And then, once your destination's in sight, you go get it. Everything you all do is incredibly important. Regardless of what industry you're in, you all service a need, human need in some way. And at the same time, you've established this goal because it has some impact to you, your organization, and your clients. So once it's right there in reach, you just got to go and get it. And celebrate those moments. Because everything you do also has some associated risk to it. So once you accomplish it, it's important to take the time to celebrate. Now, I know for me, I had a modest goal that started out with just learning how to walk a tightrope. But a funny thing happens when you actually build that skill and get to the end. You start thinking, hey, what more could I do? How much higher could I go? And you start thinking, if I can go higher, how do I do that? And you start reflecting back on that journey as a way to be a catalyst to say, what more can I do? You remember how early on you met a man who was willing to be a guide for you, who saw your goals as his goals, who had the willingness to be able to point out your weaknesses, but also to be able to help you through that, who also was able to introduce some new equipment to you that you weren't even thinking about that ultimately could allow you to go higher over time. And then suddenly, as your skills start building up a little bit, you start seeing things just a little bit differently. Maybe something on the way to work becomes now something you just have to balance on versus walking on the sidewalk. Your backyard transforms into a training center to work on your posture, your placement, your low center of gravity. And as your confidence rises, so do your expectations. You find yourself doing a lot more tree hunting because now you want to take this skill up a notch, to go a little bit higher and take your new skill to new heights. And finally, you start doing just that. And then this journey that started by walking a tightrope, now you find yourself actually walking in the trees. And it's a thrilling feeling to be able to accomplish something new, to take on a new challenge that was for you as a person and be able to go a little bit higher in that. And a journey like this, it doesn't end with celebrating success. In so many ways, it's actually where it just begins. Because anytime you accomplish a goal that you have for yourself, no matter how modest or how high it is, if it's something you subscribe to, it's important and big to you. And what a beautiful catalyst that then becomes to say, what more can I do? What new heights can I reach? And I know for me, my journey, it's just starting. It's just starting. Now again, I share this with you today not to say, look at me. Let's be real about this. I'm going 7 feet in the air right now. Your closing keynote today climbed the top 7 summits of the world. So there's no major accomplishment here. I want to be very, very clear about that. But again, the unexpected benefit of this journey for me was that all of those lessons that it took to learn how to walk a tightrope, I know I can apply to myself to be a better business executive, to be a better technologist. And it's my hope in sharing this story and these lessons with you that you'll get some of those same benefits. Thank you.